Russ, I shouldn't complain about when it's actually hot, but this is the time of year, and you can see the fan in the background here. This is the time of year that I hate, is that late July to probably late August when it's at its stickiest in Buffalo. It's the most humid. And, for people who live in warmer climes, they're probably looking at me like I'm insane, but I'm from Buffalo, so screw you. And
that's the general Buffalo attitude, so that's good.
Jeez.
I think that's actually on the Chamber of Commerce message.
It's like, I'm from Buffalo, so screw you. There you go. Welcome. Buffalo, an all-American city. Screw you. Which will be very welcoming for the All-American Prospects game in late September. I have to. We as the show ended on Friday, the news broke of the dual trades that the Bills made with Philadelphia and with Los Angeles, trading Sammy Watkins and Ronald Darby. And in typical Buffalo fashion, in his first practice as a Bill, Jordan Matthews, the wide receiver who's taking over for Sammy Watkins, chips his sternum and will be out until the beginning of the regular season. So much for settling into the offense with the Buffalo Bills. And the cornerback that they got in the other trade, E.J. Gaines, he got hurt today too. So
they're in a race with the Jets, man. They're competing with the Jets. You know they are.
Yes, and it was after one preseason game, a veteran, T.J. Yates, who's been around for a while, he has been supplanted as the number 2 quarterback by 5th-round pick Nathan Peterman. And I'll tell you something, Peterman was not impressive in the first game. So this team, I am convinced, because the ownership is the same, this team is tanking and tanking hard.
Yep. That's what it sounds like.
They will go down, and they will go down hard. Anyway.
Yep.
Okay, we may be joined by Ak. He's in transit. We're hoping he'll get here in the next few minutes, but we will forge ahead with the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, August 14th, 2017.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm aggravated, humid Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. For a day in the middle of August, Russ, there was actually some news today, and we'll start off on the Leaf front, and it's not big news here, but in the middle of August we really have to find the little things to talk about.
Yeah.
Everybody has been talking about the Leafs crunch up to 50 contracts. They're at 49 right now, with Connor Brown the only player not signed. Mm-hmm. Which I've been of the opinion that they've not signed him simply because they might want to make another move, and signing him prevents them from doing that. I think they have an agreement in principle, but they're holding back on that deal because of maybe wanting to invite somebody to training camp as on a professional tryout or things of that nature. Well, things sort of may have loosened up here because this morning, the Leafs placed Alexei Marchenko, the defenseman they picked up from Detroit on waivers last February. They placed him on waivers, and this was his agent, Dan Milstein, came out on Twitter and announced it. Then the team didn't announce anything, and the team will have a statement tomorrow when presumably he will clear waivers. There's a lot of speculation right now that Marchenko, who was basically going to be a reserve defenseman if he didn't get waived down to the American Hockey League, is heading to the KHL. Now, this has a benefit for the Leafs. It opens up a spot. It opens up some salary. But we don't know whether what the Leafs were doing with Marchenko made him look in the KHL or he did it himself. But I think this has a benefit for the Leafs that Marchenko may be going back to Russia.
Yeah, I think getting Ron Hainsey sort of pushed Marchenko out of any kind of playing time. I think that's what I'm sort of gauging from this. So, at the end of the day, Marchenko's probably being told, hey, you'll have a chance to play for the Olympic team if you get out of your deal, and so that's what he's going to do. And it'll benefit the Leafs in the sense that they'll have some maneuverability. They're certainly trying to do something else. It's not like they're not going to sign Connor Brown, and it's not like Connor Brown's saying he's going to hold out. So I'm not really worried about it.
No, and I'm not 100% sure that the Hainsey thing had any effect on Marchenko, because if you look at the way the structure
in the system, if he goes up and everybody moves down, it does cut into his playing time.
Right, and Hainsey's left shot, but he's purportedly going to play right defense. But in the top, that's the thing. Marchenko is never in the mix for a top 4 spot. No. Never was going to be, and Hainsey purportedly is going to be.
No, he is, Mike.
Well, I mean, I'm still waiting for there to be another move, because honestly, if Hainsey is in your top 4, I don't think your top 4 is very good. And I think that's been the problem with the Leafs, is that, Hainsey is a veteran guy. He's an okay veteran guy.
The Penguins won a Stanley Cup with Hainsey in there, so
yeah. I think guys like Crosby and Malkin and Fleury and Murray had more to do with it than Ron Hainsey playing a top 4 role.
I'm sure there's something to do with that.
Yeah, but if Marchenko does clear waivers, which he should, he's a Moscow native. He played 4 years with CSKA or CSKA.
Yeah.
In for his hometown team, and if that happens, then he would be able to play for Team Russia in the Olympics. And we've seen a couple instances of this, and this might be another one. And he played on the World Cup of Hockey team for Team Russia, so being able to play in an Olympics and get a gold medal, I mean, that might be enough of an enticement, especially when more than likely he was going to be the number 7 or number 8 defenseman in Toronto.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good enough reason for a guy to make the jump, and it doesn't mean he won't come back next year.
Well, that's not clear. If there's a mutual termination of the contract, he had a year left. I think he owes Toronto a year if he does come back to the NHL.
It's going to be the same. It's going to be the same as the
Radulov.
No, not Radulov. I was thinking of the big defenseman for Vancouver.
Oh, Tremakin.
Same thing. He's got to come back at some point. If he wants to play in the NHL, he has to go to Vancouver.
Right. And I don't know if the Leafs can get out of it. If, like, say he wants to come back and the Leafs just say, "Oh, okay, you're a UFA. If we don't want you,"
they could do that. I believe they can. Yeah.
So, I mean, that was one move. They signed one of their draft picks to an AHL contract. But I think the big thing was the Marchenko waiver and what it could mean. It could mean nothing. It could mean just he was going to the KHL, and that's all it is. But tomorrow is August 15th. And August 15th is the last day that 2 players in particular, but there are a number of others out there, the 2 players being Will Butcher and Alex Kerfoot. One played at the University of Denver, the other one played at Harvard, are going to be eligible to become unrestricted free agents. And it may be coincidental, but I find it interesting that the waiver of Marchenko happens the day before these guys become eligible to be unrestricted free agents. More with Toronto, more focused on Butcher, because we know last year, Russ, they were in on Jimmy Vesey, and we know that Lou Lamoriello is very heavy into the NCAA, products coming out of the NCAA, and Butcher did win the Hobey Baker. So I'm not guaranteeing he's going to Toronto, but I think at least Toronto is going to be in the mix of a number of teams that will be interested in Butcher.
I think Toronto's in the mix. I think the Rangers are in the mix. I think the Blackhawks are in the mix. I think the Kings are in the mix. I think all those teams are in the mix, and there's a lot more.
Now, I mean, Butcher's 5'10". I believe he's like a little over 200 pounds. He's pretty
solid.
He's a solidly built defenseman. He's not a big defenseman.
No, but he's fast, and he's got a great shot, and he can work the power play. And he was a real catalyst for Denver. He was, and I think he could play at the NHL level. It might be right away. I mean, that's going to be something that will bear out in preseason, but I think there's a real good chance. And so he's going to just look for where there's an opportunity. And believe it or not, all those teams, there's an opportunity. Even with the Rangers, there'd be an opportunity.
Well, I mean, everybody points at the Blackhawks in terms of the opportunity because after they trade Yarmulson, you've got the two big guys in Seabrook and Keefe, and then you have Connor Murphy as the number 3. And after that, I mean, it's basically, they traded or they lost Trevor Van Riemsdyk. They traded Yarmulson. 4 through 6 is a battle. I mean, you can have guys like Forsling and a couple other their younger prospects, Kempney, fighting for positions. So that might be the ability to play with Kane and Taves, and playing time might be enticing to Butcher. But this is, and I wonder how much this factors into the decisions of players. You got teams that have been at a level for a certain amount of time, but I don't think anybody, and it's not being mean to Chicago to say their best days may be behind them.
Mm-hmm.
It's an opportunity to sign there because you'll get playing time, but if you have a goal of winning a championship, you might be better off signing with the Rangers or the Leafs or the Sabres or teams like that haven't won in a while. But and you might have to fight for position, but overall they may have more in the tank or more in the organization to get them to a championship in the next few years.
I mean, look, I think there's a chance if he says he were going to go to the Rangers and the Rangers feel like he's pretty far along. Well, look, I mean, then maybe D'Angelo has to sort of start out in the minors, which is fine. I mean, that's not the end of the world for him. And then maybe he starts on the third pair with Nick Holden, and maybe they buy out Mark Stahl.
Mm-hmm.
They can buy out Mark Stahl, and they just haven't done it yet. But if they feel like Butcher's the guy and Butcher comes in,
well, I thought there was a secondary window. I think I
don't know when the window closes.
Yeah, I think the window already closed. It's like,
did it already close? Was it that quick? Oh, okay.
Yeah, now they may have had the secondary window because of the arbitration. If you have a player that goes to arbitration, you have a secondary window, but it's like 2 or 3 days and then it closes.
Oh, so it was that quick? Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
he'd have to fight his way up then. He would.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I mean, I'm sure that's a factor. I'm sure that Butcher is going to want to choose a place where nobody's guaranteed of anything, but that he has a good chance to make the NHL, either after a real short stint.
Clearly next year the Rangers will buy out Mark Stahl. And if he's willing to sort of play part-time this year, maybe spend some time in the AHL, some time in the NHL, then he could have a real chance with them. But I think, look, he'll have a better chance of playing with the Hawks and the Kings, but he'll have to decide if that's to his liking or not.
I mean, is it just the fact that, the game has gotten faster, or is it Mark Stahl's contract, or is it a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both. The contract isn't great. The game has gotten faster. He used to be a terrific shutdown guy. He's an okay defenseman still. The eye injury has definitely affected what little offense he has, or had in his game, I should say. So those things have been factors. Right now, Butcher could still be good for them, but I get where, if we're looking at this, they're probably not his first choice.
Right.
But again, we don't know what Butcher is willing to do. Like, he might be willing to play a year in the AHL because he might look at all these teams and say, yeah, I probably need one more. I mean, if he feels like he needs another year, then he'll have a greater breadth of teams to choose from. That's really the key.
And ironically, the team that probably could use him the most is the team that drafted him.
Yes. Oh no, that's the worst part is he'd probably be an automatic starter on that team.
Yeah. There's some whispers going on out there, and we're going to have an abbreviated show today, so we'll have a full show tomorrow at 1:00. But some interesting news about, and we talked about this briefly on the show on Friday with Ty Anderson, our Bruins blogger, regarding David Pastrnak. And, Ty was basically saying that, they have the cap room, but that Pastrnak is wanting, not a max deal, but is wanting 7 times 7. He wants as much or more in terms of a salary than free agents like Opozo and Lucic got on the open market last year.
Yeah.
And nobody got in free agency this year, other than like Ryan Johansson got $8 million, and of course Connor McDavid got 12.5. But there's some whispers out there, and Ack referred to it in his blog, and there's some talk from Brian Lawton, the former NHL general manager, that there is some potential of an exploration of a Pasternak deal someplace out of Boston. And Russ, I really find it hard to, and I'm not disputing what Lawton is reporting, but I'm really finding it tough to think that these two sides can't come together, because unless the Bruins just don't think he's worth $7 million, and I know it's a question of, do you want to pay him more than Bergeron and Marchand, which is $7 million?
Well, that's fine, but even if they don't, again, what do you have, 31 goals last year?
Yeah.
Sign him to a bridge deal. Like, he can't go anywhere. He's not going to hold out. And so
I think in Draisaitl's situation, you might be right. I'll dispute it, but you might be right that he'll just sign the bridge deal. Pasternak, situations like this, I don't doubt that they would sit out.
No, I doubt it. I doubt it.
It would be detrimental to him.
A few days of camp, but I think he has no leverage based on the ownership and their will and everything else. I think Pasternak, he has to prove that he can score 31 goals again. I think that's going to be the big thing. And unless he can, he's going to have to accept a bridge deal. And so I think I just don't think they're not handing him the keys to the kingdom. And I do think what you said as far as the other two making more than them is going to be a problem with the hierarchy and the pecking order. So it really is either hold out or sign a 2-year bridge deal, come back and score more than 31 goals, and then in 2 years, we're in much better shape to give you a bigger deal. And he's still an RFA at that point. So where's he going to go?
Yeah, I mean, RFAs who are not arbitration eligible really don't have a lot of leverage, and the only leverage the only leverage that they do have is denying their team their services.
Right.
And that's a dangerous situation, and it's in a way mutually assured destruction, because you're hurting the team and you're also hurting yourself. But the thing is, if you're pressing the issue and say, I want that long-term deal, I will not take a bridge deal. Okay, well then sit out. But
how much did Kucherov get? I forget.
Kucherov got a little under 5 for 3 years, but I still think
that's what Pasternak should get.
Yeah, that contract is potentially disastrous for the Lightning.
Well, that's fine, but it's helpful for the Bruins right now.
Right, it's helpful for the Lightning right now because they got a star player for less than $5 million. But then, they're going to be in the same situation that Montreal was in with PK Subban, probably overpaying Kucherov. Like Montreal did with Subban. I mean, Subban is not the best defenseman in the NHL, and he's being paid as such, making $9 million. Kucherov is not the best player in the NHL, and he probably won't get what McDavid's getting. But honestly, as a UFA in a couple years, he could get 10 and a half, $11 million.
I don't think so. I think
free agent.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I think there's a limit to what we're talking about, and look, I'm very high on him, but I do think there's a limit. I don't know how many more he could score than 31 goals. Let's be real about that. So at the end of the day, I say, you know what? Bring him back for the 3 years. See what you got. In 3 years, that team's going to look dramatically different anyhow.
Mm.
And
I just see. I think the thing is, I think that what I said, mutually assured destruction. Boston needs Pasternak badly, because really, who other than Marchand, who's going to score your goals?
No,
there's nobody coming up right now. I mean, they have
for the blue line. McAvoy will get a certain amount.
But Zach Senyshyn is not ready to step in and be a winger on the top line to replace Pasternak. That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, I think it's a painful situation for the Bruins, and I know they probably don't want to pay him as much as he wants, but I think there has to be some sort of meeting of the minds there. If they can get him around, I think if they can get him for a number that starts with a 6 rather than starts with a 7, then they should do the deal. And
I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, here, think about this. I mean, he literally went from his first 2 seasons, and again, he didn't play full seasons, but 46 and 51 games, to having 27, 26 points, to having 34 goals last year and 70 points. And I don't know how much more he's going to score than that. And that is probably what the Bruins are looking at too. And so you have to sort of be realistic and say, okay, let's see some consistency here. You're 21, we get it, but I need to see it a few more times. I'm not going to kill the Bruins on this one, but I would be more critical of the Bruins if they traded him, because they don't have to trade him.
Yeah, I mean, we have the 3 situations right now in the league with Eichel, with Draisaitl, and Kaya. How you doing? And with Draisaitl, with Tavares, with Pasternak, and the difference between Pasternak and Draisaitl and the other two is that Pasternak and Draisaitl, their contracts are up. You could see the Tavares situation linger for a little while because, into the season, because he's on the final year. You could see Eichel play out the last year of his contract. In the case of Pasternak and Draisaitl, if it gets into the exhibition schedule, if it gets into the regular season, then you could have an impasse that lasts until November. I mean, it could go on that long. I mean, it depends on how acrimonious the two sides are. I mean, the thing is, Edmonton's got the money. So does Boston. They've carved out enough space to pay those guys what they want. And now it's just a question of them not paying all of it now.
Right. And Boston literally could be another team that's in on Butcher too, because you can make an argument that they might have a spot available, whether it's this year or next year, for him as well. So even though they have a bunch of young defensemen, they're not all quite there. There's a gap between McAvoy and the next ones. So that's a possibility for them too. I think they're still going to sign Drew Stafford, but they have to figure out this Pasternak thing first. If they sign Drew Stafford at some point soon and Pasternak's still unsigned, then maybe I'll lean more your way. But still, I think he's a holdout for a few days in camp, and then I think after that, that'll be that.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say we'll be tracking that until the beginning of September when training camps start, because unless a major blockbuster deal happens in middle or late August, there's not a ton to talk about. We're going to start probably doing our team previews in the next week or so, because we can. There aren't many transactions left. There will be some training camp invites that we'll probably hear about in the next week or so. But we'll end the show here, and we'll probably.
Actually, I got one more thing we can real quick. There are some odds that came out for teams, and it's fun to talk about a little bit for Stanley Cup odds. Just give us one or two of them, because we can use that on a show and for a whole segment. But yeah, give us some highlights. Well, you give me. All right. Well, we'll go with your Toronto Maple Leafs. They're 14-1.
Where they are in their development, I think those are actually not very good odds. I think they should be around 20 to 25-1, because
Matt's not as high as you would think.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of like that's dark horse territory. Probably your favorites are around 3-1, 9-2.
Nobody is 3-1.
Okay, so is 5-1 is a favorite 5-1?
Nobody is 5-1.
Okay, so. Yeah, that makes 14-1 even more. I mean, that's probably in the top 10. I don't think the Leafs are one of the top 10 in terms of odds of winning the Stanley Cup. Maybe I'm wrong, but right now I don't see that.
This outlet has them at tied for 7th, but there's tied with 14.
Yeah, that's you know what that is, Russ? That is. Actually, the funny thing is, I would say if that was trying to get the Toronto market to bet on the Leafs, they would have the odds a little higher to try. Yeah.
So here's an interesting one. So Colorado is 100-1, but Detroit is 200-1.
Wow.
Just let that sink in for a minute there.
That's how far the Detroit Red Wings have fallen. That they're. I don't agree with that. I think Detroit
and
has
Vegas is 200-1 too. Like no one's going over 200-1.
Wait a second. Detroit is the same amount of odds as Vegas.
Yep.
Okay. This is who who set
who else is at the bottom?
Who set these odds? Hockey Insider.
No, this is a place called at NHL Expert Picks.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, they are.
That's fine. Give us one. Give us one more here.
All right. Let's see. I'm gonna give one that I think will surprise people.
Yeah. Give us the team and let me guess what the odds are.
Okay. This team is 12-1. They're in the West.
San Jose.
No.
12-1. Okay.
San Jose is lower than that, just so you know, or higher, I should say. They're higher odds.
12-1 in the West. Well, it's not Anaheim. Anaheim's got to be the favorite, one of the favorites. Nashville.
Anaheim is not one of the favorites.
Okay, this.
Listen, I'm just.
Okay, who is it? Give it to me.
This one is the Minnesota Wild at 12-1.
Okay. Yeah, no.
Mike's not a fan of the outlet. I get it. I'm just reading them as they are. Someone tweeted them to me, and I
just blew an advertiser. Sorry to rip you. Don't agree with your odds.
Okay.
We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.